Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Got a lot of energy in the room today in spite of our tropical weather. So today we're going to have a discussion. We have a number of folks from the HR field today who are experts in the subject. How many folks are either from staffing and hiring agencies or HR related groups? Okay, a bunch of you all. Okay, a lot of you all. So you guys weighed in with us today. Okay. What I want to talk about today is hiring like a champion. We are in an interesting time because of a red hot environment of the economy. The number one concern or priority, according to the Conference Board survey in 2018, the number one concern among CEOs is hiring and keeping talent. It's the number one concern by far. Because of the pressure that is existing in our society, in our culture right now, in our economy, the pressure is fierce, and it's leading to behaviors that are odd, that we haven't seen before. How many of you have heard of the term ghosting? Ghosting is having multiple interviews, accepting a number of positions, and then not showing up on the first day and not even telling that person that you're not coming in, because you have so many options that flaky people will take advantage of that. We're also, let me give you an interesting one. I heard this past week, we've got a CEO forum that meets monthly. And one of the CEOs told us a story that they actually, one of their top managers was recruited away from them to another firm. And the day after she resigned, she came to him and said, look, here's my 2 week, you've got my 2 week notice, but for me to stay here, I demand a pay increase for the last 2 weeks. Have you ever heard of that? So those are, by the way, what do you think he did? He said, "Saranara." But the fact is, it's leading to some bold behaviors that we haven't seen before. Right now, we have a fierce economy, but there's also another major issue of a strategic nature. The operational nature is we're having difficulty finding top talent. The strategic nature is that right now, between now and the next 5 years, we have the largest loss of institutional knowledge in American corporate history through the retirement of the baby boomers. And those companies, a strategic goal is to begin to hire in a way that is going to prepare that organization 3 to 4 years down the road. Let me share a couple trends. Those industries that have been typically male dominated, such as manufacturing, grocery retail, what else? I could name several, but those organizations that have been typically male dominated, there is a strategic opportunity that they have, that if they will take advantage of it and understand the wisdom and finally coming into modern society of hiring women in key leadership positions. It sends a major message. I'll give you an example. I'm working right now with a major firm that they don't have a single woman on their senior leadership team. Kroger was the same way. Kroger made a decision to hire a lady to their #2 position. First time they've had someone in that position. What do you think female executive leaders heard about that? And it sent a message that the glass ceiling is beginning to open up. It was a really, it was a smart strategic move and wise for a lot of different reasons. So it's necessary to understand that your strategies for not only acquiring, but keeping and developing your people are now more important for strategic survival and thriving than ever before. Make sense? You guys with me? Yeah. Okay, so let me give you some thoughts. U.S. job openings hit a record highest level in the last 20 years. The number of employees who voluntarily quit their jobs has reached the 17-year high in July, according to the Labor Department data. Finding the right talent, according to the American Society of Human Resources, is listed first among all priorities in executives right now. Let's talk about critical factors. What we've learned are critical factors in strategic hiring is #1, emotional intelligence matters. Emotional intelligence matters. When you think of emotional intelligence, what are we talking about the characteristics of? Talk to me, you guys. Empathy. What else? Talk to me.
Good listener.
I'm sorry?
A good listener.
A deep listener, the ability to put yourself in another person's shoes and see it from their viewpoint. That is a mark of emotional intelligence. The ability to show deep empathy. Connection with people at a deep level. What's another one? Self-management. The ability to either have an effective filter or develop an effective filter that you just don't vomit at the mouth and self-destruct. Make sense? Anybody here ever done that before? Besides me, okay? And so why is emotional intelligence? Because the higher the level of emotional intelligence an individual has, the more stable they are as a long-term employee because they're more sophisticated. They are folks that look at big picture. They do not make decisions when you have high emotional intelligence based upon reaction. They're much more proactive and they make better long-term decisions. So emotional intelligence matters. How companies, and by the way, that's why assessments on emotional intelligence, many companies are beginning to use assessments on emotional intelligence as a prerequisite to why this person should be hired. We actually, and I'll show you in a few minutes, we have a system that we've developed with the aid of a bunch of experts that we actually have an assessment that gauges not only emotional intelligence, it gauges things like this. How does that person relate on a dominant scale? How does that person relate on relationship or extrovert or introvert scale? How does that person respond to detail? Are they a rules-based person? Are they a vision-based person? How does that person deal with things such as what's their level of emotional satisfaction in their life right now? Are they burned out? What's their energy level? What is their energy capacity? What's the size of their battery? Not only what is the size of their battery, but how do they use their battery on a daily basis? Is it like a marine battery that everything that they do, it's thrust, let's go, go, go? Or is it a slow trickle that don't push me, but I'll keep going. We have an assessment that shows you that. And with that assessment, you can say this person would be great in sales. This person is not great for this industry. This person would be awesome in terms of a major leadership position because of how he or she makes decisions. The other thing it does, it actually shows you what you look like when you're in an unsafe environment, or what you look like as a leader when you are in a place where your attitude has gone south and you do not feel safe with yourself. And we call that your backup style. It actually shows you what your little guy looks like in environments where you don't feel safe. And it shows also your impact when you're in that place, how it impacts an entire team. To have that kind of data up front is an enormous advantage. And very few people, the rule of thumb is less than 20% of employers will take advantage of tools like that. The ones who do will put themselves, they will create an instant edge for themselves. Second, leaders have to think beyond the hire. Onboarding and development are critical, especially with the millennial generation. Here's what we're hearing. What are my opportunities for growth, for development, and higher responsibility? Now, as boomers, we're often offended that that question would be asked. Because as boomers, we were taught what?
Pay your dues.
You pay your dues. You have to go in a linear progression, and someone else will determine when you're ready or not. Now understand, that was a world of scarcity. That was a world when the economic structure, infrastructure of the United States was not nearly as developed as it is today. And that means as well that the number of opportunities that are available to people did not exist 15 to 20 years ago. Not only that, because of the exposure of technology, you've heard me say over and over again, as exposure to information and ideas rises, respect for authority decreases, which means I believe I bring more to the table. So we have wired an entire generation, and the Zers coming behind them are the same way. We have wired them to be impatient. That's a good thing too. We have what? You're smiling. Why are you smiling?
I agree.
And that's not a statement of arrogance. It's a statement of high self-belief, wiring that you've got the knowledge. I have high respect. And so for the companies that can keep their people, what we know is those companies tend to have what we call a fail-forward culture. In a fail-forward culture, you're not afraid to put folks that have shown the potential, but you haven't put them on the playing field. Those are the companies that can throw them in the water with good mentorship. What is the fastest way to learn? What's the fastest way to learn? Doing, and not only doing, but what?
Failing. Making
Mistakes. Perfectionistic cultures struggle keeping top-notch employers. They struggle keeping top-notch employees. Why? Is perfectionism a good thing?
No.
It can be. You want your brain surgeon to be a perfectionist. You want the guy or the lady who's putting your tires on to be a perfectionist. You understand? But the negative side of perfectionism is when it goes to shame and judgment. The negative side of perfectionism is you can't win. The negative side of perfectionism is I am always watching you, and it's got to be what? Perfect, and it's got to be my way or the highway. And by the way, I'm the judge of what is perfect or not. See that? Those kinds of cultures, gang, will have high turnover and difficulty attracting people. That leads to the next step, that culture is key. That's what we're talking about. It's not a gimmick. It's not a set of tools of how-tos. It has, as you're dealing with people who have more opportunities, you've got to have a very, very appealing culture. And so for instance, is it a culture that empowers people? Here's what people are looking for today in top-notch cultures. They're looking for a culture where they are empowered to make decisions. They are looking for a culture where there is high transparency, where there is high information being shared. My day, the baby boomers, we were taught that you don't share information. In fact, if you share information, you're putting yourself at risk and you're being stupid. That is when knowledge was power. Today, knowledge is no longer power. Why? Why is knowledge no longer power?
Readily available.
Because everybody has knowledge. It is no longer something that you can keep under lock and key. And as a result, when you're used to that, when my 9-year-old son tells me yesterday that he wants to Google what geonuclear physics is, I didn't even know how to spell that word until high school. They have instant access to information that has rewired already their expectations of what relationship looks like. That I expect you to be candid, I expect you to be upfront, I expect you to be real, I expect you to share the information. In the Great Recession, we spent a lot of time working with companies who had been decimated because of the layoffs that many of them had no choice of. And what we found when we were working with them, we would hear in the middle of the ranks that when this thing is over, we're out of here. The only reason why we're not out of here right now is we don't have opportunities. And we asked them why. Here's what we heard. We heard over and over, look, we understand that there comes a point that your last resort is to start dealing with your labor pool. We understand that. However, what we don't appreciate is being treated like children in the middle of the transition process. We even said, what do you mean being treated like children? Give us the information. Tell us the good news, but even more, tell us what? Tell us the bad news. Do not spin information. Do not decide which information you're going to give. Don't take responsibility for my response by managing which and how and when you're going to give. Show leadership. Put it out there and trust me as an adult that I can handle the information. You're treating me like a child. What you've told me is what? I don't trust you. I don't trust you. And so, gang, what we're seeing is in those cultures that are real, that are transparent, that show high trust in their people, by giving appropriate information to their people and trusting them with that information, there is a higher level of retaining and gaining top talent. Yes, sir.
What do you think the leadership person is attempting to say when they're saying, I don't trust you? Like, I don't know if you understand.
No.
So in that leadership position where I'm not giving all of the information, but I have an intention that's probably good, right? So what is my intention in that situation? I'm not saying I don't trust you, which is what you're receiving, but that's not my intention, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think typically is the leadership person's intention in that situation?
Well, there's a bunch of leaders in this room. What do you guys think?
you're giving them the information that it's your way or the highway,
Yeah,
that you're the one who knows.
yeah. Yes, sir.
I think that has to be earned and not given, the trust side. And I think a lot of times that's taken for granted.
Okay.
And a lot
Yes,
of
ma'am.
times leaders are afraid of how the other person will react, or they're trying to protect themselves as the leader by withholding information.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was gonna say similarly, the reaction that your unpredictable reactions, and also I think we're moving at such a fast pace with our lives that almost having to go through and tell them everything about a certain situation, chews up time. So time being the priority there. And so it's you just give them what they need to know, because you gotta get on to the next thing.
Yes, sir.
In contrast, in one of my roles in the past, I was given a wide latitude to give everyone all the information that they needed, except salaries. I ran with it at 90 miles an hour, and my bosses wanted results, and they wanted complete transparency. I was the controller, and yet I loved running with it, and we shared everything except salaries, and we, as a division, flourished.
We're seeing, gang, with 78% of the workforce, 78% of the workforce, which is the back half of the Xers, all of the millennials, and the front side of the Zers, which are those folks that are now coming out of college. 78% of the workforce demands transparency. Now, are there times that it's inappropriate to share information? If you're a publicly traded organization and you're in the middle of a merger situation and you sign due diligence documents, you can't share information, or you can go and put a orange suit on, okay? There are times that it's inappropriate to share information. However, if you are a transparent culture and people know that is not your MO, will they give you slack in those times? I've got one company where we've been working with way down south, and they had difficulty, the accounting department was having real difficulty because almost everything that he said to his team was confidential. It was a lazy way of saying, you know what, I'll tell you on a need-to-know basis. And it was over and over and over. Confidentiality can become a lazy way of figuring out the art of how to deliver communication. Does that make sense? Yes, sir.
I think it's key to allow people to know their piece of the puzzle, where they fit in the machine. You know, I think back into the military, of course, you had to be very close with the information. You could always go out there and do what we call the commander's intent. Here's the intent. Here's the spirit of what we're trying to do. Here's an overlay. We can't get into the details, but at least you know the big picture. So you know if you're heading in that direction, what your purpose is. So you continue to let people have a purpose.
Well, by the way, welcome, Matt. Matt is the sheriff of Kewaunee County. And Matt, I'm sorry, but I'm parked in the handicap space. And it was my wife's decision to make me park there. I take 100% responsibility. It was her fault. No, welcome. We also have some folks from Madison. Ben, welcome here, fellow Badger football player here. So let's keep going. You just said something, Matt. It's the last thing, and then we're going to open this thing up. Alignment with purpose and meaning is more important than ever before. Alignment with purpose and meaning is more important than ever before. People who have multiple opportunities want to know who the organization is. Do they have a compelling, clear vision and mission? Do they have a compelling, clear vision and mission? And most importantly, are they living it out? Are they living it out? Culture, after a competitive wage, it doesn't have to be the highest, but the research is after a competitive wage, the next major variable of if the competitive wage is met, the highest variable after that is what is your culture? How do you treat your people? Yes, sir, Matt.
Fred, I have to applaud you for what you just stated. And we work with a lot of different companies, and I want to reinforce your point. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the very first thing is, on the base is, people need to be able to put a roof over their head, have basic transportation, nutritional needs met, right? The next thing becomes belonging, then self-actualization, very at the top of the pyramid. And we see often where companies champion culture, and I'm not taking away from that, it's extremely important, but it is really only important after the basic needs are met. So having a in-market wage for that individual position is extremely important. And I will also state that there are many companies that don't have an in-market wage, are paying poverty wages, but yet champion culture as the recruiting methodology, and it just doesn't fly. There needs to be an alignment.
There's no trade-off. It's not if you do one, then the other suffer.
It's excellent. Great comment. Matt, we're looking for a facilitator. And
Be happy to help you recruit for one.
as long as we stay away from your people. By the way, we do have an active policy. We never recruit from our clients. Who else? What's going on in your head? Yes, sir.
So when you were talking about those assessments, and then you were also referring to empathy and emotional intelligence and stuff, and that can be a very big key for leaders when they understand their own personality style, to then know how to best communicate with the people that they're hiring or the people that are in each of the other leadership positions.
Excellent. Excellent. You all, are you strategic about how you go about your onboarding process? Are you strategic about how you go about your onboarding process? Can we throw that that tool up? Do we have it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I love flexibility. She is so awesome. She just goes with me. So gang, let me give you an example. This is going to sound like an infomercial, but it's not. It's not intended to be. It's showing you this is a tool. This is a tool. This is not the only tool, but let me give you an example. First of all, when we hire people, and many of our clients hire people, we provide that assessment that I talked to you about. Many of them will not make the decision until they've seen what that assessment tool looks like. They want to know, how does that person react to conflict? They want to know how will that person be defensive when they're held accountable? Will they hold other people accountable? Are they team players? Are they all in? Do they have to be told what to do? Do they have high self-direction? You want to know that as much as possible before you make that hire. So that's the front end. Also, what are you doing to create bonding and relational cohesiveness between your employees? The old rule was you don't make friends at work. That's the old rule. Is that the rule for today? No. The rule, and the reason for that is the justification was you can't hold your friends accountable. Yes, you can. If you have the courage and there's clear expectation that we can be friends, but understand if it's between friendship and leadership responsibility and you're offended you think that I'm gonna withhold accountability because we're friends, you are sadly mistaken. So we need to understand that up front. You can have, and gain, with the millennials and the Zers, one of the factors that keeps them present is, do I have a family here? Do I have people? I don't want to leave this place, even though I may be making $4,000 a month, a year more by going here. I'm willing to stay here because of the depth of relationships. And so do you have a process? So one of the things that we do is we will do a team scan. And we will put those 10, 11, 12 people in the room, and we will share that team scan of what they all look like. And when I'm in my little guy, I'm a visionary, I'm very high dominant, okay? Which means I'm very decisive. Let's go, go, go. I will look like a bully to someone who is a high C, which means tell me what to do. I need to have all the information before I make a decision. I will absolutely be overwhelming to this person. And if I don't know where they are, I will look at them as a slacker who needs to show some leadership. And the fact is, we don't understand each other. So we actually will get people in a room and begin to say, this is what this person looks like in their sweet spot. This is how someone reacts to you when you're in that place. Oh, and this is what that person looks like when he or she goes into the backup style. And this is what their trigger is. And all of a sudden you have accelerated big time how we work together as a high-powered team. But not only that, how are we sensitive to each other and showing each other respect? Yes, sir.
Yeah, knowing your little person, as you refer to it as, is extremely helpful. Mine's verbal attack, and mine's if I get into a situation where I feel uncomfortable, I'll just keep talking and talking and talking.
Yeah. I've never seen that, Tony.
So, but it's very helpful to know.
And mine is dictatorial steamroller. So if you have verbal attack, and verbal attack doesn't mean just necessarily you're going to lay someone out. Tony just talked. It's I'm going to win the argument by overwhelming you with information. And I'm not going to give you an edge. I'm not going to give you an inch to even have part of the conversation. How do you think that will go when I'm in dictatorial steamroller mode and I don't want to hear what you have to say? That does not go very, very well. And what we find is many teams self-destruct because they do not have an environment of respect. When you do not have an environment of respect, your team will go into child mode. Did you hear that? Okay, that sounds touchy-feely. That is given fact. The research is all over the place. Your kid will show up at work if you don't feel safe. Maslow's hierarchy. Make sense? And so, do you have a process where you can accelerate your teammates' knowledge of each other and being able to operate in a way that shows high respect and high involvement? And then the third part of the process is we will put those people in a deep leadership transformation process. Sometimes as an entire team, we may put one, if they've only got one or two folks, we'll put them in a mixed group that we have. And what that signals to your folks is we are willing to do deep investment in you. We see you as a valued, our best asset. You are not a means to an end. You are why we are here. So that's a systematic way. There are other ways to do it, but the world-class companies that understand that their edge right now is keeping and maintaining and attracting top talent. They've got to go about it in a deep strategic manner. And gang, it costs money up front. Would you agree with that? It requires an investment mentality. In the long run, it's much cheaper. Does it cost a lot of money to replace someone with a lot of knowledge?
Yes.
As a nurse, Tracy used to be the chief nursing officer, one of the hospital systems here. Tracy, how much was it when a nurse left? What was the cost to the system?
Back then, $60,000 to replace nurse.
Right there. Lost productivity, training costs, getting that person up to speed, lost opportunity. Turnover is a killer, gang. Turnover is a killer. And there are ways that you can reduce your turnover. Now, the other thing is, it's important to understand, Millennials Gain, what was the quote?
44 and 61.
44% of millennials will leave their job within 2 years. 61% of Zers see that they will do that within 2 years. Now, I don't know about you, but we really work hard on our culture here. And when someone leaves us, I take it personally. I think it's about my mama. And it's hurtful. That's something that we've got to change our mindset on, because we are in a culture where there is going to be more fluid turnover, and you've got to get used to it and understand it's not about your mama. Yes, sir.
Don't those 2 points contradict? I mean, if we're going to stick a bunch of money into training and getting someone into the culture and 15,000 and upboarding them, but we know that they're going to leave within 3 years, or there's a 50% chance that they will.
That's a great point. Gang, I've had people say, why should I invest in people when they're going to leave?
I didn't say it like that.
Well, I have people say it to me all the time. It's an objection that we hear all the time. Why should I invest all of this money into people that I'm not sure they're going to be with me? There was a statement that it's pretty common now. Well, here's the problem. What happens if you don't invest in them and they stay? The point is, gang, you have to invest in your people as an ongoing part of your culture because it's the right thing to do. If you're doing it because it is a strategy to keep people, now it's a gimmick and now it feels manipulative. There's an agenda behind it. And the reality is, if you think that way and you have an investment mentality, the rate of turnover will still go down. It will still go down. But we just had someone leave us who was we love her. We love her to death, but she got a $35,000 a year raise. How do you compete against that? And it was in an area that was 100% within her sweet spot. We had to say, Heidi, we love you. And because we love you, you got to go. You got to do that. So that stuff is going to happen. And that's what I'm talking about. Who else? Yes, sir, Matt.
Fred, if I may, I think revisiting the cost of turnover and starting the dialogue of looking at your organizations and actually coming to the table with that cost of turnover calculated changes the entire game.
It does.
So if it's an hourly person, it's 33 to 50% of their annual compensation. If it's a salary person, it's literally 100 to 200% of their annual compensation. Those figures come from Sugar. But if you apply that to an organization, all of a sudden you see that, oh my gosh, this organization's spending $500,000 in their cost of turnover.
Yes.
Now you have some legitimacy in terms of let's invest, let's change compensation, let's change our onboarding, let's change our recruiting practices, right? So starting a conversation there really does help seniors in an organization frame the argument correctly.
By the way, Matt, what's your company? What's your background?
Express employment.
Yeah, you do have some experience in this area. He isn't an expert. You guys are experts. Sarah, what's your response to what I'm saying?
It's important, but you have to get senior leaders on board, because a lot of times they're looking at the monetary piece. We're publicly traded. And so you have to figure out what that hook is, and you have to get them thinking about the future. We're seeing, you mentioned early on about all this knowledge that's going to be going out. I mean, we're seeing that in the banking industry. People are retiring. and we got to backfill. So there are not enough people in the space. We've recycled talent forever. Right now, what we need to do is invest in people. We need to build our own talent. That's what's most critical.
That's huge. Thank you for that. Yes.
So we talk a lot about investing in people, which is never a mistake, right? But I looked at it differently because I challenge you to think about it as investing in your culture. Because in my company, what happened after we made a huge investment in individuals is we saw a bit of an exodus in people who didn't, well, let's just say we pushed them out. These were people who didn't fit the culture. Had we kept them, it would have been much more detrimental to the bottom line of our company than what we were able to do by making that investment initially.
That is
And
a great point. When you're building culture, it will not only develop your people, but if you're developing a healthy culture, there are some unhealthy, toxic people that typically are a part of any kind of culture that is of a company that's been in existence long enough, has layers of different employment, has a larger pool of employees. We call them naysayers. They are addicted to chaos. In fact, chaos for them feels safe. They're masters at undermining leadership and vision. They are natural manipulators, and they can take up to 80% of a leader's time if a leader does not know how to lead well. A healthy culture will begin to put the squeeze on those folks. A healthy culture is characterized by high transparency. It's characterized by high accountability. It's characterized by real-time conflict discussion. It's characterized by shared participation. In that kind of an environment, your toxic employees will not be able to cut it. Yes, sir. Terry.
And we need not to get blinded by numbers. If 44% are going to change jobs, that doesn't mean that every company is going to have exactly 44% of people changing jobs. There's going to be some companies that have 10% of people changing jobs. There's going to be some companies that have 70% of people changing jobs. That's going to average. So do you want to be in the 70 group or the 10 group?
That's right. Excellent. Good stuff. Yes, sir, Tony.
On that training front too, and with so few people, good people out there for jobs, I'm familiar with Marissa Meyer from Yahoo, and then she was at Google previously. They had a product manager position at Google, and they couldn't find the right person for it, and they actually just basically built the person by doing all this training and helping create a person, people who were good for that position. So what we've been doing is same thing. Can't find good people out there in operations. We'll bring them in, and there's so much knowledge, as you talked previously, and we can send them through Coursera courses or things online and invest in them to be an expert at that specific job.
Yeah. Let me say one last thing. We teach what is called a leadership ladder. We adopted it from Maxwell many years ago, but we've added a bunch of our own stuff to it. Level 1 cultures are command and control cultures. Do what I tell you to do. I don't want to know what to think, just comply. Level 2 cultures are relationships matter to us. Level 3 cultures are where you have relationships, but you also have a commitment to strategy, and you have a high commitment to accountability, and there's strong momentum. You can be a world-class company and be at level 3. Level 4 is where you begin to not only be an outstanding company, you begin to shape an entire industry because of your practices, and people are watching you. At level 4, the discipline of the major strategic discipline in a level 4 company is development of its people. Development of its people. And when a person leaves a level 4 company, there's not all this angst. Why? Because it's a next up mentality. It's like the NFL, next. Why? Because you've been developing a whole level of bandwidth. Level 4 organizations are constantly working on their bandwidth. With me? Festival Foods, as we wrapped up, is a perfect example of that. That is a great company. It's one of the best in the grocery retail world. They spend a ton of time and investment working on their people. Several years ago, they stopped 21 stores. And the reason why they stopped the 21 stores, every time they opened up a new store, they had to hire 250 employees, and 55 of them had to be leaders. They don't have a grocery degree anywhere in the United States. And Myers was poaching them, Sam's was poaching them, Roundy's was poaching them, Kroger was poaching them, and you don't go out and hire all these people. So what do they have to do? They said, our only way if we're going to continue to grow, we don't have a financial problem, we don't have a strategic problem in terms of the communities want us or need us. We have a problem that our growth is being stymied because we don't have enough bandwidth. And they began to work on internally building their leadership from within. And now their growth has gone significantly beyond 21 stores in the last 3 years. And a key factor was working on developing their people. It's a major strategic shift. Has this been helpful?
Yes.
I love you guys. When you get a bunch of very seasoned, savvy leaders in a room and create an environment where people can express themselves, ideas flourish. Oh, when ideas flourish, problem solving deepens and it speeds up. That begins to separate you from everybody else. And we're modeling that here in this process. I want to thank you for being with us. We'll do it again next month. I know there's a bunch of people that have been online with us from all over the country. And we thank you for joining us as well. Gang, let's give ourselves a hand, and then you all